Hey everyone, Knowledge here, and in this video we're going to compare three tents. The 6 Moon Designs Lunar Solo, the Zpacks Hexamid Solo, and the Zpacks Plex Solo. Alright, thanks for joining me. After sharing a Plex Solo first look video a couple of videos back on this channel, I also asked in that video if a lot of you would like to see a comparison between the 6 Moon Designs Lunar Solo, the Zpacks Hexamid Solo, and that Plex Solo tent. And I received an overwhelming response from a lot of you saying that you would like to see that. So it's about 24 degrees Fahrenheit right now. It's early spring. With the wind gusts, it's feeling a little bit more like 17 degrees Fahrenheit. But I really appreciate all of you and watching my videos and your feedback and asking to see that video. So I'm going to withstand the elements out here and the cold chill, and we're going to go over the three tents next to each other. I'm not going to get into great detail with each tent. I'll put a link in the description for this video where you can see some of my other videos going over those tents. But this one is more just going to show you everything side by side. We'll go over the setup. I'll show you the livable space inside of each of those tents. And then we'll close it off with a little bit of guidance and which tent may or may not be for you. So let's just break everything down very quickly, and then we'll get into the setup of each tent, starting with the 6 Moon Designs Lunar Solo. And for a frame of reference with this video, I'm about 5'10" and 160 to 165 pounds. So the 6 Moon Designs Lunar Solo is a one-person tent that weighs 26 ounces and costs $250. It's made out of a sill poly, and the dimensions are 90 inches long by 53 inches wide at the center and 48 inches on either end of the tent. It is not seam sealed, so that is something that you'll need to take into consideration when purchasing this tent. If you are not comfortable seam sealing it, you can have 6 Moon Designs do it for a slightly higher price, and it requires one trekking pole to be set up. You can also use a footprint. So I have a sheet of poly cryo there, and the tent will require at least 6 stakes to be staked out, although you can use up to 8 total in very windy or heavy snow and rainy conditions. The Zpacks Hexamid Solo is a one-person tent. It requires one trekking pole, and it's made up of Dyneema composite fabric and a no-seam mesh. So it's fully enclosed, but you don't have a solid floor like you will with a lot of other tents. This gives you the option of choosing the floor that you'd like and being able to replace it or use it on its own if you preferred to do that as well. The dimensions of the tent are 107 inches long by 54 inches wide in the center and 30 inches wide on either end of the tent. The tent requires at least 6 stakes to set up, although you can use up to 8 total if you prefer to have a little more room and a little more stability in harsh conditions. The tent weighs 10.2 ounces on my scale, and the total cost is $499. I will be using a Dyneema composite fabric Zpacks Hexamid Solo Plus footprint for this video, and that costs up to around $140, although you could also use Tyvek or poly cryo or anything else that you'd like. I also have some tent stakes to stake out the tent. And the Zpacks Plex Solo tent is made up of Dyneema composite fabric. The total weight is 13.2 ounces on my scale, and it costs $599. It too requires one pole and it is a one-person tent. You don't need to use a footprint, although I will be using a piece of Tyvek for this video. The tent also requires at least 6 stakes to be set up, although you can add up to 10 total to give the tent really great stability in strong winds, heavy rain, heavy snow. The length of the tent is 100 inches, the width in the center is 38 inches, and the width at either end of the tent is 28 inches. Now when I'm backpacking or through hiking, I'm normally just hiking with one pole. So for this video, I'm going to be using a modified adjustable carbon fiber pole that I purchased from Zpacks. And this pole I'm going to use with the 6 Moon Designs Lunar Solo. In this video, I'm also going to be using some carbon fiber poles that I purchased from Zpacks. And these are specific for the Plex Solo and the Hexamid Solo tents. You can use those on backpacking trips if you'd like. I purchased these so I can carry this instead of a trekking pole if I'm out on a bike packing trip or a paddling trip. Inside of each tent, I'll be using a Gossamer Gear Thin Light pad. This is a 1/8 inch pad. I'll have my Thermarest NeoAir X Light. This is a regular wide, so it's 72 inches long by 25 inches wide and 2.5 inches thick. And I'm going to be also using my trusty Sea to Summit Aeros down pillow. To top my sleep system off for this video, I'll be using my Katabatic Palisade 30-degree quilt. Now to set up all of these tents, I like to start in the back end and then prop it up with my trekking pole after I have the 2 back corners staked out. And then I'll finish staking the rest of the tent out. Each of these tents are going to be single wall tents, so there are some benefits and drawbacks to each of them. Let's get into the Lunar Solo. Alright, now we'll set up the Zpacks Hexamid Solo. And lastly, we'll set up the Plex Solo tent. Alright, so here's the Zpacks Plex Solo, and I just have 6 tie-outs staked out. I also have the 2mm line on this tent that comes with it. I had switched it out to 1.3, which I mentioned in my video going over the first look of this tent, but I've been using this tent out on some late winter trips And I definitely needed the thicker line for the snowfall that was coming down on the tent and the wind gusts as well. And then over here we have the Hexamid Solo. And inside I have the Solo Plus bathtub floor right now. And then lastly we have the 6 Moon Designs Lunar Solo. So each tent is staked out with 6 stakes. Just getting in and out of the Plex Solo is pretty easy. So you can see how much room I have inside of the Plex Solo. Lots of vestibule space outside. Plenty of room for the pack. I've also put my pack inside of the tent with me on some trips. Great ventilation around the whole tent. There is room for adjustment here, so I can pull those up if it starts really pouring to mitigate splashback from coming up through the mesh here. A little pocket for headlamps and smaller items, and a good amount of headroom. And with the quilt, I'm still not touching the end of the tent. And the wide rainbow door, which drops down, and sometimes it can drop to the dirt. Other times it can drop inside of the tent. The bathtub floor is about 8 inches high, and just reaching over, you can easily adjust the vestibules, open the doors if you want to. And the entry exit height is about 36 inches, so it's very generous with getting in and out of the tent. Let's move over to the Hexamid Solo. So getting in and out of the Hexamid Solo is a little more difficult simply because this tent has an entry exit height of about 29 inches compared to the 36 of the Plex Solo. Let me show you the inside. The Hexamid on the Neo Air pad comes down a little closer, but still have some room. So a little less room laying down, unless I'm at an angle. Decent amount of room. Coming close to the end. Close to this end. And a good amount of room, but you got this pole right here in the way. There's also a loop up here, so you can hang a headlamp if you want to have some light inside. Again, a good amount of vestibule space. And there's the actual floor. I haven't had any issues with the mesh on the solid ground yet. with roots and rocks and everything. Obviously, you want to be a little more careful setting it up, but I haven't had any problems with it. It's one of the things that I really love about it, is having more of a connection with your surroundings, but the mesh will also collect a lot of your surroundings. So you see all of this debris, all the leaves and everything gets attracted to the mesh. It does soak up water a little bit when it's raining out, so it does make the tent a little heavier, but it does allow the tent to dry a lot quicker than other shelters. With this mesh floor, you also have really good ventilation, which is critical for a single wall tent. And the bathtub, this is about 5 inches. You won't get that if you're using Tyvek or polycryo. Another nice thing about that is not only being able to choose your footprint, but you can also lay down just on the footprint and not even use the tent if you're out on, say, the PCT or CDT. The other thing is if it really starts pouring out, you can shift the floor to block wherever the wind and rain are coming from. You're kind of limited with the other tents in that respect. And lastly, let's take a look at the Lunar Solo. And the Lunar Solo is super easy to get in and out of. Let me show you the room inside. And this tent is going to be similar to the Plex Solo. So, got lots of room there. Lots of room there. There's a little clip here if you want to hang something. There's also a little pocket right down here. So if you wanted to, you could put your headlamp in there and some small items, just like the Plex Solo. And with the quilt, plenty of room. Good amount of ventilation around the side, and a good amount of room, similar to the Plex Solo, to store your gear. This is going to be the most spacious out of all of the tents. The Lunar Solo also has a vent up at the top, so you get a little bit more airflow, where the Hexamid Solo, you don't have any vents, but you do have the full mesh floor. And then the Plex Solo, you don't have any vents at all, aside from the mesh going around the perimeter of the floor. The Lunar Solo also has a J-style door, where the Hexamid Solo and the Plex Solo both have the half moon or the rainbow style doors. And lastly, while the Lunar Solo does have the highest entry exit point, I believe it's around 40 inches, you do have a lot more exposure when you're getting in and out of the tent compared to the Hexamid Solo and the Plex Solo. So if it's pouring out, you are a little more likely to have a little bit of rain enter through the mesh here when you're getting in and out of the tent. It's not something that will happen all of the time. Campsite selection will also help mitigate that. But with the Hexamid Solo and the Plex Solo, these awnings here do give you a little bit of extra rain protection when you're getting in and out of the tent, but it also allows you to roll the doors up a little bit and enjoy nature's display while you're protected inside of your shelter. So earlier in this video, I mentioned a drawback to these tents. So that drawback with all of these is that they're going to get a little bit of condensation. You're going to get that with any single wall tent. That's just unavoidable. So a few ways to address that are going to be great campsite selection keeping the doors open when you can to allow better airflow, using any of the ventilated areas of the shelter that you have to your advantage. And I also like to pack a small microfiber quick drying towel. So in the morning, if I do have a little bit of condensation, I can just take this out, wipe down any of the dew or condensation that I have on my tent, and that'll help it dry a lot quicker throughout the day. So out of these three, which one is the best? There is no best or better tent. If budget is a priority for you and you're looking for something very spacious yet simple to set up, you like hiking with one pole, or you don't even use trekking poles and you just want to carry one pole, and you're looking for something relatively light, the Six Moon Designs Lunar Solo is going to be a great option at $250 and only being about a half a pound to a pound heavier in weight than the other two options I have here. If you're more a tarp user like I am and you want to have more of a connected feel to your surroundings, the Hexamid Solo might be a better way to go. You have that full mesh floor where you're feeling a lot more connected. You're seeing everything around you. It's going to be about as close to a tarp as you can get with having a fully closed in shelter from the bugs. It's also going to be the lightest fully closed shelter option out there if that's something that really appeals to you. But at 5'10", I was coming close to the edges of this tent. So if you're a couple inches taller than me, you might be okay, but if you're above 6 feet, this is probably not the best shelter for you. And if you're looking for a tent that is fully closed in with a floor sewn in already, similar to the Six Moon Designs Lunar Solo, but a lot lighter in weight and cost is not a factor in your decision, the Plex Solo is going to be a great option. You're getting a very similar setup and feel to both of these other tents, but you're also getting the floor sewn in and the benefits of Dyneema composite fabric. I've been really happy with all three of these, with all the use that I've had with them so far. Plex Solo is definitely newer, and I look forward to getting a lot more use out of it this year. But at the moment, I still really love the Hexamid Solo. I love having that deeper connection to the outdoors. And that's what led me to getting the white for this tent and also getting the white for the Plex Solo. Just being able to see a little bit more of the shadows and outlines with my surroundings outside of the shelter. So there you have it, a very brief comparison going over these three tents. Have you used any of these? What's your experience been like with them? Leave that in a comment below, or if you have any questions about any of these shelters, you can leave that in a comment below as well. And if you're using a different shelter, leave that in a comment too. I'd love to hear what you're using on your backpacking trips. If you found any value in this video, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more. Going to be adding a lot more content this year. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, see you on the trail.